So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. My name is Christopher Hamilton. I have a few disclosures to make. One is I'm the legal director for Protect Sudbury. I'm also an abutter to the project, and I'm a practicing attorney in Massachusetts, but I'm not here in that capacity. I'm here today as an abutter and a limited participant, and I wanted to talk about a couple of things. The first is that I wanted to take issue with the idea that we can use cost as a justification for not adequately protecting our water supply. Once that water supply is contaminated, we're done. And you can just look in any newspaper across the country, and you can see numerous occasions where people have ignored protecting the environment, have ignored protecting water supplies in the vein of protecting financial resources, and people are suffering as a result. So I find it deeply offensive that we would, and Eversource would use as a justification for not using mechanical vegetation management down this whole route as cost, as a justification for not adequately protecting our water supply. And I would implore the board, if you are inclined to approve the project, as it seems you are with the tentative decision, that you please add that additional element that mechanical vegetation control be mandated for the entire length to adequately protect the water supplies. We don't know what we don't know. And it's almost impossible to dictate or predict where contaminants are going to flow. And if by spending a couple more dollars, we can ensure that that water supply will be protected, that is money well spent. So again, I implore the board to add an amendment to the tentative decision, the final decision, to insist that mechanical vegetation control be utilized. The second issue that I wanted to discuss today is this idea, this unacknowledged idea of coupling this project with the energy project with a recreation project, that is the rail trail. It seems we're working exceptionally hard in this room to not acknowledge the coupling of these two projects. And I would say that that's an insidious idea. First, Eversource has used the idea of this rail trail as a means by which to shoehorn their way into our community. Well before they ever announced officially this project, they came to our town and dangled the prospect of a rail trail in front of town officials, gained access to the town as a result, and probably didn't get the initial resistance that they should have because of that dangling. And I submit to the board that that's a Trojan horse, that they used it to gain access to our town, to gain access to the idea of this project, and we know that the recipients of that Trojan horse in history were not well served by that. The rail trail is a false justification for an unnecessary project. And again, I submit that Eversource, as council have adequately stated here today, Eversource has not proven the need for this project. So the rail trail becomes an unnecessary justification for the project as a result. Secondly, I would argue that it's an improper justification for the board to even consider that the rail trail should be a justification for this project. And I would submit that I can find, or I have been unable to find, any support for the proposition that that's a valid consideration for this board to approve or disapprove this project. Yet, it seems to me that the idea of the rail trail factors heavily into the tentative decision. And I submit again that that's probably beyond the scope of the authority of this board and therefore legal error. Secondly, or thirdly rather, it deprives our community, coupling the two projects together, deprives our community of the regulatory oversight they'd otherwise be entitled to. Because by piggybacking on the EFSB project, the rail trail can now take advantage of the regulatory override that this board, the regulatory override authority that this board has, and can then fast track that rail trail, and again deprive our community of their oversight regulatory oversight of the project that they might otherwise have. Recall that about, I'd estimate 85–90% of the rail trail project is going to be accomplished by the work that Eversource is doing pursuant to the EFSB mandate if it's approved. So that's 90% of the work that Sudbury has been unable to provide that regulatory input that they might otherwise be allowed. And it deprives us of that self-determination and that autonomy as a government and a citizenry. So I thank you for your time. That concludes my comments. I'm open to questions if there are any.
Any questions? No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Comments.